Welcome to the feedback for the short answer questions on week 6 homework, blood vessels and vascular shunting. So let's have a look at these questions. The first question we have, and we are going to bug, is explain why platelets are important to athletes in contact sports such as boxing. So if we go with our bug technique, we have explain, platelets, and then athletes in contact sports such as boxing, and we know it is worth 2 marks. So my first mark is an AO1, it's a recall mark. What is the role of platelets? And then the second is linking it to our boxing. So let's have a look. So the role of platelets. Platelets prevent blood loss by forming a barrier and a scab. And why is that important? Now, it's an explain question. So we know that where we have an explain, we're going to use this connective, therefore. So here's the start of my sentence. Therefore, we're making sure we're explaining the impact. In contact sports such as boxing, so I've linked it back to my question, platelets prevent blood loss, allowing them to continue training or competing. So I've got an AO1 mark for what is the role of platelets, and then AO2 mark, which is linking it to the sport but showing the impact. Right, part B, state. So we're going to box that command word, state, and 1 is uneven in bold, function of plasma. Now just recapping that word function, that means the job that it does. And for this question, it's worth 1 mark. Now, there were 3 possible answers you could have given. The first one is related to transport. So you could have talked about transport of red blood cells, transport of white blood cells, transport of platelets, transport of glucose, or transport of waste products. Now, just a reminder, I've just used RBC, WBC because I've not got a lot of room. However, you would have more room to write your response, so please write them in full words. So transport of one of those things would have been the first answer you could have had. The second answer was maintaining blood pressure and volume. So you would have also got a mark for that. And the third answer was in relation to plasma being involved in the regulation of body temperature. So you would have got 1 mark for any one of those 3 answers that you had given. Right, part C. To ensure blood flow to the working muscles, vasoconstriction occurs in some of the boxer's blood vessels. State the meaning of the term vasoconstriction. So again, it's a state and meaning. So this is a bit like a definition, and the term vasoconstriction, and it's worth 1 mark. So keywords in relation to this. Vasoconstriction is the narrowing of the lumen of the blood vessels to decrease blood flow. So we've got 2 keywords within that answer. The narrowing of the lumen. So remember, the lumen is the internal diameter of our blood vessels. And because it gets smaller, it's constricting, it's decreasing blood flow. So that would get you 1 mark. Okay, if you turn the page over. So question number 6. Okay. During a game of basketball, vascular shunting takes place. Describe what happens to blood flow during vascular shunting. So let's bug this. So this time we're leaving the boxing behind and we have a game of basketball, and we've got vascular shunting. And the command word is describe. So these are all AO1 marks. What happens to blood flow, that's important, during vascular shunting? Now we know that whenever we see this word vascular shunting, there's 2 words that we connect with it. One is vasoconstriction, and the other one is vasodilation. So we're going to make sure that we include those within our answer, but also making sure we link it to what's happening to blood flow. So 4 marks available. So we're looking for 4 statements. So my first 2 statements link together. So blood flow is increased to active areas during our basketball game. So I've linked it back to the basketball, and we're talking about blood flow. And we've got an increase to active areas, for example, muscles. How does this happen? This occurs through vasodilation, the widening of the lumen of the blood vessels. So I'm explaining this word vasodilation and the fact that this time they are widening. Second part of our answer, we're now going to think about blood, the other part of blood flow. So blood flow is reduced to inactive areas, for example, the digestive system. So rather than increase, we've now got reduced and we've got inactive areas, and we've given example blood digestive system. How does that happen? Well, it's going to happen through vasoconstriction and then narrowing of the lumen of the blood vessels, just like you have described in the previous question. So for each of them, we've given how vascular shunting happens with these 2 key terms, and we've also talked about blood flow. Right, final question on this homework. Question 7, explain one reason why vascular shunting is necessary during a game of basketball. So I'm going to box the command word, and again, it's one reason, vascular shunting, necessary, and we're talking about basketball. And this time we've got 3 marks. Now it's an explain question. So we need to make sure we use that connective therefore, and we're linking it to the impact. Now there's 2 possible ways you could have taken this answer. The first way I'm going to talk about is probably the most common way that most people would have chosen. And then the second way is still correct, and some people may also have gone down this route. So the first reason vascular shunting is necessary is that we need to transport oxygen to the working muscles. Now, that's the first mark. The second mark is the therefore bit. Therefore, the basketball player will be able to work aerobically, or therefore the basketball player will be able to pay back an oxygen debt, or therefore the basketball player will be able to break down lactic acid. That would get you your second mark. And the final mark is for the impact on the basketball player. So the player will be able to work at a higher intensity for longer with less fatigue. Adding oxygen into any of these things, working aerobically, paying back an oxygen debt and breaking down lactic acid, will always enable for less fatigue to occur. So that's the first way you could have taken the response. The second way is to think about body temperature. So vascular shunting can redistribute blood vessels near the surface of the skin to reduce body temperature. So whenever you're hot, if you have a look at your wrists and arms particularly, you'll see that your blood vessels are really clear. That's because your body is shunting them towards the surface of the skin to help reduce your body temperature. Heat is generated, here's our second mark, is generated by muscles when we exercise. So the friction within our muscles when we exercise creates heat. Why is this important? For us to lose heat, so therefore the basketball player is prevented from overheating and performance dropping. So if you can't regulate your body temperature, your performance levels will decrease.